So today we are joined by the wonderful Meghdut Roy Chaudhary, who I personally consider to be a visionary. He's at the young age of 29. He's the chairperson of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce's Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Cell. He's the director of global operations at Techno India. And other than that, he's the founder and curator for venues like Topcat CCU and the entire Offbeat CCU. So I've been researching you for a while, and something that's come up here and there is you defining yourself as a lifelong unlearner. But honestly, with this current education system, traditional education, does traditional education support such unlearners?
It should. See, things have changed very rapidly in recent times, and I would consider myself to be an outlier. I did not go to the top school in Calcutta. I didn't go to St. Xavier's or La Martinet or one of those schools which are considered the most elite schools in the city. I went to schools which were not bad. I went to a Birla High School. I went to St. Lawrence High School, and I learned a lot of things from there. But even there, I was always considered an outlier because of the personality I had. From when I was very young, I was always out there. I was always conducting shows, hosting award ceremonies. I've always stood first in class, all of that. But what ends up happening, I've seen in most cases, when you're considered a child prodigy, or you're considered a genius from when you're growing up, it gets to your head. Now, the reason why I consider myself to be an unlearner is because if I don't feel challenged by the kids of today, if I don't feel like, okay, there's something that I'm not doing right and there's a scope to learn, I will never grow as an individual. And mostly what ends up happening is with young achievers, they feel like they've already achieved everything. There's so much to be, they don't feel like there's so much left to be done. If I start thinking like that today, then a place like Offbeat wouldn't have existed. Then I wouldn't have tried to push the boundary for what's possible. I come from a lot of privilege. I come from enough privilege where even if I wanted, I could have not worked a day in my life. It wouldn't have mattered to anybody. Then why do I put in so much time and effort into my work? Because for me, it's something that I'm trying to give back to my city. I know that Calcutta has a lot of potential. If Calcutta is still one of those cities where if you have 20 rupees in your pocket and you want to dedicate your entire life to having a good time, being relaxed, being retired almost, it's the best place to do that. But that hunger to do something, to achieve something, to learn something, the Bengalis are doing it. They still have the hunger, but the hunger gets unleashed when they move to other cities. Yeah. That's because in Calcutta there's no scope to unlearn. And if you're not unlearning, you're not really learning. Because the rate of change of technology, the rate of change of the way that the world itself functions has been so rapid. The development of the world, in the paradigms that we live in, has been so rapid that unless you're unlearning, you're not really going forward at all. So that's why I say that, a couple of things I write on my LinkedIn bio, lifelong unlearner, Kolkata lover, these are things that come from within. It's just like, I'm not trying to get attention for that. I'm not saying, I'm the chief wizard of whatever. I'm not a wizard. I'm nobody. So yesterday somebody on a post wrote to me that you're a hero. I was like, no, I'm not a hero. I'm just somebody who wants to make a difference on a day-to-day basis to people like yourselves. If you feel that tomorrow, after I heard somebody in your team studies at SRM, they are not in Kolkata. Somebody studies at OP Jindal. I want these kids to come back. I want all of them to come back and contribute to the cause of making Calcutta relevant again. Which is a hashtag again. That actually happened quite randomly. I was just thinking, what is one purpose or one vision that I want to encapsulate in my work, and that's the only purpose I've found. So let's see what happens. We have a constant debate with Saurav Ghosh, our chief retired comic at Topcat. He says, make culture capital again. I mean, it's too complicated as a hashtag. You won't make it swing. It's a long hashtag. So make Calcutta relevant again is the only thing that I'm going with now. If at some point it ends up becoming a youth party for change, like what Macron did in France, who knows, maybe someday it might. Then the manifesto should read that, whatever the name of that party will be, make Calcutta relevant again.
I actually saw that on one of your posts recently, and I thought to myself, that could be a question.
Yeah.
But, okay, so my next question is about something you're very close to, music. Now, you founded Blooper House Studios when you were 19. You're the founder and creator of Topcat CCU, which hosts regular shows. Offbeat has shows. And Calcutta, it has seen music in phases. We had Rabindranath Thakur, followed by Hemanta Mukherjee, followed by Mohiner Ghoraguli. Then we had the Jibanmukhi Gan phase, heralded by Kobi Shuman and Ranjan Dotto, but as someone who's young right now, I don't think personally that I have people like them in this generation to look up to. Would that be true? And if it is, why is it so? Is it because of a lack of venues in the city when compared to other artistic cities like Bombay or Delhi? Or is there some other reason that I'm completely missing?
Very interesting question. I think the lack of modern day idols is not just restricted to the world of music. If you talk about Calcutta as a city, it's a city of the yesteryear. It's a city of nostalgia. It's a city where constantly people are referencing people who've died 100 years ago. Now, is there something wrong with that? Yes and no. On one side, if you see, Rabindranath Tagore is the icon for what Bengal is. Yeah, right? Because Rabindranath Tagore is a hero. And when people reference a city, it's the vision of the hero, the superhero. Like Gotham had Batman, yeah, Bengal had Rabindranath Tagore. So it heralded like the entire history and the personality of a city. It derives from its hero, which is it still continues to be. No matter who has come after that, it has always been Rabindranath Tagore, who's because of the range of things he did as well. He was considered as a true visionary of his time.
Everything.
Still did, right? Still is considered. Now, obviously it means, but you have that whole image of Rabindranath Tagore. If you think about it, he had that flowy beard, he had that kaftan, he was always he had that sort of chill vibe about him.
And the Tagore family exuded art.
As art and culture and tradition and all of that has been very integral to the history of that family. Which means even till today, when people think of Bengal, they relate it to Rabindranath Tagore in the way that
And when someone says Tagore, people don't even think about the Tagores of Pathuria Ghata. They think of Jodashako.
Jodashako, yeah, exactly. And no matter what other Tagore family might exist, there will be only one Tagore family in the history of Bengal at least. So what's important to note here is that it's about creating modern day idols without forgetting where the roots come from. I have no issues with Rabindranath Tagore being considered the OG superhero of Bengal. No issues with that. But we need some gangsters now as well. We need some cool cats who are changing the way we do music. Let's take the example of somebody like a Jacob Collier, somebody who has been a virtuoso jazz musician, changed the way that jazz is considered in the world, while still holding on to his whole quirky pop nature. And he's able to merge the two so interestingly. He's doing the most interesting collaborations of his time. And this case, how old is he? He's what, 25, 26 years old maybe?
At the same time playing with playing and learning from Quincy Jones and with pop sensations of the time.
Imagine. So I think that's very interesting. We need people like that. We need people who are happy to break those boundaries. They don't even consider the rest of the the working class musicians, if you call them, or whatever, the regular musicians of a city, whatever the city has to offer, they don't even consider them to be competition. We haven't seen that. True. We saw that with Kobi Shuman at that time. We saw that with Ranjan Dotto. We saw that with Gautam Chattopadhyay. Because of his grasp over folk music, because of the way, and it was not just Gautam Chattopadhyay as a musician which led to the rise of Mohini Ghadaguli. It was also Gautam Chattopadhyay as a curator of music. True. He was coming up with albums as collaborations and bringing the best of the musicians, the folk artists, the Rabindra Sangeet artists, all kinds of artists, even bringing in international sensations and making them part of his,
Like when Pete Seeger came.
Pete Seeger came, and you have that very
with Kobi Shuman's
that photo. I think that photo was, still exists. I think they were in Nojul Munch and they had this show. I don't remember if it was Nojul Munch, but I'm guessing at that time there was probably not a lot of venues in the city. But if you think about that, such interesting things have happened. Very recently, I saw when it comes to like other forms of art. If you say even with say Satyajit Ray, I saw a photo of Satyajit Ray and Marlon
Brando for the script of The Alien.
Exactly,
he came down to Park Street.
Yeah, he was. I think he was staying at the Grand. And all of these things have happened in Calcutta. Calcutta still seeped in so much. So many amazing collaborations have happened, but at the same time, if you see recently, it sold out to so much mediocrity. I mean, I heard this very interesting story. I think in 2007 or 8, right at the beginning of when Mumford and Sons was coming into power. Apparently, these guys had come to someplace else to perform.
Really?
And they were booed off stage. Yeah. Can you imagine, like these international sensations for folk music, folk rock? They've sort of revolutionized that with their very interesting sort of bluegrass inspired, folk, and a lot of blues inspired as well. And you have this amazing man. These guys are booed off stage. So what ended up happening, I really feel, is there was a modern day culture sort of lost its meaning. There was this rich sort of, the people, the nouveau riche, they, sort of making money, but not really understanding culture as much, not understanding the importance of Calcutta's cultural, heritage, and then giving in to Bollywood music. It's just as simple as that. You go to any club. It's not a lack of venues in city. You say that there's so many. I think in the since the pandemic, I've seen at least 20 new venues have opened up in Calcutta.
Skinny Mo's.
I'm not talking about a Skinny Mo's. Skinny Mo's is a 2-year-old venue. I'm not talking about venues that actually care about art and culture. I'm talking about commercial venues as well. There's so many venues in Calcutta. Imagine if half of them, even if 1/10 of them contributed one day a week for good music, for music that made sense, which was not derivative, which was not covers of Bollywood numbers. It was some just decently good music and promoting original music, even if it is not live music, even if it's electronic music. I love electronic music. A lot of people say, hey, you seem to be a purist when it comes to the rest of it, but yet you go to every single techno party in town. Yes, because I love it. Why wouldn't I? I think if you have to be, a lot of people talk about music, being a music connoisseur, you have to be a purist for music. Why? If I would also listen to, if there's a good Bollywood song coming out, I would listen to it. But when it comes to supporting music, I'd support artists that make sense.
Indie musicians.
I will support good music. For example, in Bangla, right now there's one artist I support, one duo called Talpata Shepai. I feel they are path breaking in terms of what they're doing, because they're simple, they are non-complicated, they are young, they are very talented, and there's no facade of intimidating music prowess there. It's just simple guys doing simple music. I think it's like modern day জীবনমুখী গান বলা যেতে পারে।
Even if you look at the Orko Mukherjee Collective.
Orko Mukherjee Collective, they've existed for a long time. They've done great work in folk music. They've done great covers. Each of their videos have like millions of views on in the internet. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fresh crop. Again, let's not get disillusioned with artists who've existed for the last 20 years performing in Calcutta and every single venue that has existed. I have my utmost respect for them. They probably don't need my support as much as a Talpata Shepai.
Exactly.
They probably need us to push the boundary of what's possible with modern day, say not even folk music, whatever it was. We need to promote that as well. That's very important, which is why I end up supporting some of these artists, and I think it's going to take us a long way. Bengal needs new idols. Bengal needs young idols. We don't need to even the Orko Mukherjee Collective right now, they are in their 40s, right?
True.
Most people in that band, they're in their 40s. Our idols don't have to be 40 years old. Our idols should be 20, in their 20s, in the early. I am old. I consider myself to have already been past my prime. I'm only curating stuff now, where people, I don't even, ideally in a couple of years time, I don't even want to come in the front anymore. I shouldn't have to be pushing for it. We talk about resilience, very important for whoever's watching. We talk about resilience as the power of human individuals to stand for themselves and their ideals and their principles and all of that. I think it's a fault of society. It's not a power of individuals. It's a fault of society that you have to strive so hard to be resilient, because nothing works. And if nothing works, obviously we have to try harder for that. Why should we? Why do we have to? Why can't we create spaces and virtual, digital, physical, whatever, but spaces which are considered safe spaces by young people, where they can work on their art, they can work on their music, they can work on their culture. That's important. If you don't have space for experimentation, which is where, even if there's say a noise band which wants to say perform, and we've had we used to do this thing called reproduce sessions, and I don't understand noise. I don't get what noise is about. But if there's young noise artists and there is a genre of music called noise, I think it's my responsibility as a curator and as a venue to support that. True. Even if 2 people turn up, right now we're in a post-pandemic, we're not doing it because we're only doing pre-booked shows. But if a noise artist can sell out 30 tickets and do a show, I'm happy to support them, even though I don't understand the music. So what is going to be good music tomorrow, or what is going to be good art tomorrow, should not be dependent on my biases. That I think is something, as a curator, is very important to, as a curator, as a gatekeeper, whatever you say, I think is very important to. Quality, yes, but should it be dependent on my biases? Absolutely not. But again, principles are important. If there are 99% of the other venues in the city supporting young artists who are doing Bollywood covers, let them do that. They don't need my help. Then that's a choice. That's okay.
Like, I think it was Carlton Kittu who taught a bunch of people, and all of them went to Bollywood.
Yeah, but there's nothing. See, again, there's nothing wrong with Bollywood. I just think it's just misproportionately hyped, and the amount of attention it gets is a bit undue. I think there is a lot of good music that's happening. We, on the other hand, we also have a Shahana Bajpai. You think about that. We have amazing artists who have revolutionized the kind of music they do. Shahana Bajpai, the way she does Rabindra Sangeet is unthinkable. She has revolutionized that, and the way she's carrying forth the baton of Rabindra Sangeet in the UK, for example, right? And she teaches this the history and culture of Bengali folk music and of Rabindra Sangeet at I think either at King's College. She's going to beat me if I don't get her college right, because we done a quiz on it, but I can't remember. I think it's at King's College. If we are not able to appreciate the fact that such artists are also as important as a Bollywood or a Collywood or any other pop music genre. And let's take a look at an example of, say, Punjabi music. Look at Diljit Dosanjh. This guy is killing it, like left, right and center, and he's able to commercialize his music, and he's like a pop icon. He's a modern day icon. Look at some of these Punjabi rappers, the kind of work that they're putting in, and I find that inspirational. Why are we not as proud of our Bengali music? Why do we still have to go and praise other musicians from Kolkata but who are still doing English music or doing derivative forms of music? Do English music, but do it in a way which is not derived from somebody else.
Experiment.
Yeah, not just experimental. I'm saying it should not be derivative. That is basically my only thing. Use derivative music to get a name for yourself, but when you do have the clout, push the narrative. Otherwise, then I'll have to support other artists.
Moving on. Blooper House Studios, just to reiterate, you started it all when you were 19.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that immediately pops up, at least for me, what are the pros and cons of starting at such a young age?
It's all pros, there's no cons. There's no cons because you have no responsibilities. When you're 19, first, see, there's one thing I've realized very recently, this is like a post 28 realization, is that I've been trying to push the entrepreneurship envelope a bit too hard, I figured. Because you can't make an entrepreneur of somebody who does not want to be an entrepreneur. Some people have it in them. Some people need a bit of brushing and then they realize it. And some people just don't have it and have no interest either. Let them be. I think I was pushing, this is again, when I say I'm an unlearner about myself as well. I'm constantly questioning myself every day in the morning when I wake up. What I do, is it worth it? Is it worth waking up in the morning for? Should I continue doing it? If not, let's stop it, let's move on. Fail fast, move on, So I figured that I was pushing the entrepreneurship envelope for a lot of people who did not want to be entrepreneurs. So there's no point of that. As a young entrepreneur, I think what you guys are doing is great, because I don't know about the success of it. And which is why you said, I think the reason I decided to do this interview was I was on a live, or I had done an AMA, and somebody, I think
asked
it was
me
you.
anything and I asked.
Yeah, you said that we'd like to do an interview. I was like, it's a challenge. If you get me questions which I've never answered before, happy to do it. He sent me a bunch of questions. I didn't like half of them. I said, I'm not going to answer these. Rest of them I can. So my whole point is I want to support young people. I don't care if you have 1 million followers on your YouTube or whatever. If my interview helps you get another 50 followers, and I'm glad. At least some 50 new people would have heard about you guys. They would have supported some other young people, and my half an hour that I spent with you guys would have been worth it. I at least know what young kids are thinking. Maybe there's some things that I don't know that you can. Maybe one thing I'd be able to learn. I learn a lot from people. Honestly, like I used to be a huge reader when I was young. Then I think I can't focus as much anymore. Now I only read graphic novels. And by the way, if you have not read the one I'm reading right now, it's Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens has come out as a graphic novel.
Yeah. Oh.
It's phenomenal. I am just on the verge of finishing that. I was just again today I'm going back to that bit of literature. But now the reason I talked about books in general, I think it's great to read. I see my dad. He reads 10 books a week, and he still has that kind of a mental capacity to do that. I'm a lot more on the ground. I'm trying to build something. When trying to build something, you don't have as much time, which means I learn a lot from people. On average, I meet about 50 new people every day.
Wow, that's
every single day.
Quite a number.
Yeah, and from various different fields. Actors, artists, musicians, business people. Some good, some bad, some ugly. But there's something to learn from everybody.
True.
Which is why if I can take out that time, that half an hour, okay, I'm going to meet some new people I've never heard about. I can't have an air if I want to learn. If I want to be an unlearner, I can't have an air about who I am, what I want to achieve. না আমি নিট করবো না, না ঠিক আছে আমার একটা এত বড় নিউজপেপার না হলে আমি করতে পারবো না. That's not who what I stand for. I stand for accessibility of information, stand for accessibility of knowledge. If I myself am not accessible, then how can I preach that? You know? Anyway, so going back to what was your exact
pros and cons.
Yeah, so there's no cons basically. If you are between 18 to 21 years old, you are at the best time. If you can beg, borrow, steal, get some cash, start something that you figure, you know, that is something that pulls you, do it. Because as a young individual, the kind of things I did during my youth, during my school days and college days, I think it still gives a lot back to what I do. It was not just Blooper House. Blooper House was one traditional, not traditional, but one thing that I set up and in stone, and it's an institution and it's existed for the last 10 years. The number of events that I have done, and not just events like, you know, hosting shows and stuff. I'm saying, you know, right from 420, which I used to host, you know, way back in the day, to organizing Calcutta's first ever laser tag competition. You probably have never heard of these things because it happened way before your time. To organizing the first ever street dance battle, which also, it was a Rasta Jam. We had done it, I think, 10 or 11 years ago. There's a bunch of these guys called Magic Wall Rush. We've done all of these things. We did something called The Scene, which was for the opening of a new mall called AMP Vaishakhi in Salt Lake. I got 1,500 people together during a Poila Boishakh, and we did every single art showcase ever possible. If I had not done those things back then, figured out a way to do it and not make money, maybe a little bit of money here and there, but just keep yourself involved and know that I always knew I was going to be part of the arts and entertainment and culture scene of the city, and I wanted to make a positive change towards it. I worked on it. That vision has to be there. I think what sets apart successful entrepreneurs and not so successful entrepreneurs is your resilience in that, you know, you shouldn't be, again I said before, it's not, you shouldn't have to be resilient, but at least to your own vision, I think it's very important to be resilient. You have to wake up in the morning and keep hammering on it every single day, that this is what I want to do. I will do one thing, maybe not every month, but maybe once every 6 months I can do that. So the whole network that I built before I left to study abroad, I knew people who I knew were going to go and make a difference tomorrow, and I knew that community-based education models would be working. In the future, I knew these people would come back and collaborate with me, which is why not just Blooper House, but all of those things I was doing, getting people together, you know, spreading happiness amongst people, just that has had such a long-term effect. When I started Offbeat, for example, from day one, I had people who were excited about the idea because all of these people knew if Meghdut is doing it, must be something fun, right? So it's something that because I started that young, because I have always been driving that narrative. People know me for, okay, if I'm doing something, it must either have never happened before, or at least for the first time in Calcutta, though definitely hoche, and I do it properly. There is an execution that goes behind, there's a thought that goes behind, there's an element of takeaway at the end of it. So if I'm not able to do that, then there's no fun of it. I'm sure so many of you who is going to watch it, even if it's like 5 people, I don't know how many people will watch this, but if you are and you know you're listening to this, it's important, whatever it is, one thing that drives you, do it as a young person, but you have no responsibilities. You don't have to really worry too much about getting your basic education done and passing college or school, wherever you're at, and not disappointing your parents majorly. Other than that, you don't have a lot of responsibility. You have a lot of time to figure stuff out in your life. Do something. Do something you can later go on and write in your CV. Do something that later on you can draw experiences from. Maybe, who knows, at some point in your life it's going to be, you know, useful. So yeah, all pros, no cons.
Okay, now we've talked about your revolutionary education perspective, and we've talked about your love for music, and you're obviously very passionate about the both of them. How is it all interconnected, and if so, how?
See, I think tomorrow's Homo sapien is going to be tomorrow's advanced version. We're not talking version whatever we are right now.
Human futurists.
Yeah, let's say that in the future, the Technion, perhaps, you know, that will be the assimilation of various kinds of intelligence. Music, art, dance, education, entrepreneurship, everything is interrelated, right? It's about recognizing patterns. It's about recognizing patterns in human behavior. Behavioral sciences, cognitive sciences, these are things that are the most important skills of the future. It has also been of the past. If you notice back in time, the most successful individuals have been those who understand what's happening around them and are able to mold themselves according to that. It's as simple as that. Today, what are the industries that I kind of see myself in? I'm in F&B, I'm in hospitality, I'm in entrepreneurship awareness, I'm in education, I'm in entertainment, I don't know if I said that, and gatekeeper of culture and comedy and music and all of that. It's like 5, 6 definitely. Then with my partner, we are also very much into sustainability, social impact. That's about 10 possible industries I'm in. Now through the same event, even if it doesn't matter if it's like a 1-day festival or a 5-day boot camp, I can drive 3 of those verticals minimum in each of those things. Why is that important? Because it's not for me, it's for every individual who comes in and is part of that event. They need to come back with something that they were not aware of before. Learning really happens, and this is something that I don't take it from me. I am no world-renowned expert on anything, but it's just basic pattern recognition that I've done, and I've seen that learning happens the best when you're encountering personalities, and when you're encountering individuals or ideologies which are so different from you that it freaks you out. That's when you truly learn, because otherwise you're in a shell and you're in your bubbles, like the way that human conversation happens, the way that social conversations happen, especially on the internet. It's so oriented towards keeping you in your own bubble. Actually, social media does not want you to talk to people who are not like you, because it's not to their benefit. It's about creating, social media thrives on creating bubbles because that drives the same narrative. It's better for getting people votes and getting them to win parties, right? So if you have an extreme right ideology, and if you are not talking, let's go the other way, I think chances of that happening are probably more. If you have an extreme left ideology, and which I think is as problematic as the extreme right way, so all kinds of extremism, I think in general does not really lead to progress. I think the only way it could lead to progress is if these people were having conversations. I think there are middle grounds to be found. And I'm not saying, okay, be centrist for everything, don't have an opinion. I'm not saying don't have an opinion. But even if you do have an opinion, make sure it's an informed opinion. Make sure you've spoken to enough number of people who are not like you to validate your opinion. Then you have the opinion. Then you say, okay, you know what, I've heard them and I don't believe in them, but I still have their opinion. Then it's your problem. Then it's not my problem anymore. But social media and modern day media in general does not want you to do that. It wants you to be in your little cubby hole and like not get out of it, and stick with people who are exactly like you, so that there is very little cross dissolving between ideologies. Polarities become a big problem, which is why I think this is not even a problem. This question, the reason why I said it was an interesting question is, yes, I would like to in fact work on even more disciplines tomorrow. I would want to work on more industries and sectors, because I think that none of them are linear. Everything borrows from everything else. We coexist in this world where 7 billion people are different from each other. Obviously, the way that I look at education is not going to be the way that you look at it. The way that I look at music is not going to be the way that you look at it. And no other 2 people will be the same, exactly aligned on 2 different things. So if I'm not able to learn on my everyday journey from all of these people, then am I doing my job as a curator, as somebody who's privileged, as somebody who's educated, as somebody who has the power to change things? I don't think so.
Now, we've talked about making Calcutta relevant again. Kolkata relevant again.
Calcutta. It's always Calcutta.
The city of joy. And, well, how do we go about it? Because, as I said, Calcutta is suffering from a very disheartening ailment. Mm-hmm. It's young leaving the city for greener pastures. Now, I wouldn't say holding them back, because that will obviously have negative connotations, but how do we as a city ensure that we are self-sustainable? How do we go about it? How do we?
First of all, there's a lot of bias in the statement that you made. Let me point it out. One, yes, Kolkata's young are leaving the city. I do agree with you on that. But they are leaving the city not just for a lack of economic opportunities, they are leaving the city for a lack of fun things to do also. So remember this example that we used to get in school, that if you draw a line and you want to and that is like the work that you do, and you want somebody else wants to come and do bigger work. It's not about making that line smaller, it's about drawing a bigger line next to it. That's one thing, that's one example that's stuck in my head for the longest time, say for the last 20 years. What I believe is, if tomorrow we want to make Calcutta relevant again, we just have to make Calcutta fun again. It's just as simple as that. Give people enough reason to come back, even if they are studying at an SRM or an OP Jindal or whatever other college. And right now they're only coming back for their, for Durga Puja or whatever other festival. Make them feel bad about not coming back the rest of the time, so that tomorrow when they finish college, they come back because they're like, okay, all my friends are having actually way too much fun. Or FOMO hoy jata.
Make everyone jealous.
Make everyone jealous about the amount of fun that you're having in the city. Automatically, the perception of the city will change. I can actually already see it changing, guys. I moved back to Calcutta almost 4 years ago, and since then, primarily because I get bored very easily, I have been going to every possible place that one can go to as a young person, as an old person. I meet with on the same day I would have met like 10 people of your age group, 10 people of my age group, then 10 people of your dad's age group, and 10 people of your grandfather's age group as well. Because there's some things to learn from all of them.
Everybody.
Now it's important to note also that Calcutta is the largest contributor to GDP for medium and small sized industries. Right? And that is particular communities run most of those industries, and these kids never leave Calcutta. They are actually having a lot of fun if you think about it. It's mostly Bengalis who have take it into their heads that okay, there's not that many good things happening. Amar ekhane Rabindra Sangit prottek din rate ami shunte pacchi na, whatever. I don't want to pay. See, you can't expect to have fun if you're not willing to put money into it, right? You can't expect to go to a restaurant and free to khabar debe na. You can't go to a club and expect to have fun if you don't buy drinks for your friends also, apart from yourself. This same ideology, I think, is working here. Young people need to be financially a bit more self-sufficient, so that you can go out and spend money and actually have fun. Go out. I have seen a lot more kids having fun when they have a bit of financial freedom. That helps a lot. Now that ends up happening why are these Bengalis are going out and having fun in Dubai, they're having fun in Bombay, in Bangalore, Hyderabad. Why are they not having fun in Calcutta? Because they don't make as much money in Calcutta. And there was a lack of things to do. I see that changing, definitely. A lot more things to do in Calcutta than I had when I came back. And that's been more of a recent progress. And if we can keep pushing that narrative that okay, Calcutta is not just a city for old people, it's not just a city for retired people that you come back to when you are done with everything else in your life and you want to just like exist and not have to do very much about it, then maybe things will change. I'll keep pushing for the narrative for a little bit. I don't know how long. Till the day I get absolutely flabbergasted and I see it's not moving anywhere. Because otherwise, if I had built an offbeat in Pune or in Bangalore, or I don't know, maybe by this time gotten some VC money, made one in San Francisco, I think by now I would have had my own yacht. But I decided to do it in Calcutta for my love for the city and because I'm stupid. But I'm stupidly in love with my city. What can I do? So I had to be in the latest adopter. But I'm glad also. So many learnings and it's going fairly okay. So
and finally,
yeah.
Do you have anything to say to the viewers at home?
Just like don't be complacent. I guess that's my only thing to say. It doesn't matter where you are, even if you're watching this from Bombay, Bangalore, or from somewhere outside the country because you've seen this video on somebody's post. Don't get complacent with what you've achieved and what you've done, because there's somebody out there who's already hustling hard enough who can disrupt whatever you're doing. And let's not forget that nothing that we do at the end of the day is truly original. Everything is in some way derived from something else that somebody has done. Philosophically speaking, as well as objectively speaking as well, there is some form of what we are doing that exists somewhere else. No matter how novel we say what we are, keep building on it. No matter, especially if you are a builder by nature, if you like creating things, then you couldn't possibly have created something that will last till the end of time if you're not constantly evolving. That you are not evolving, that your venture is not evolving, because I've seen that with Offbeat as well. Like from the day that we started, which used to be like this shady hotel, to now what it exists as a ray of hope for young people in the city, as a community for young people in the city, where for various different reasons people keep coming back, learning. The space itself has evolved. And it's ask anybody who's come to Offbeat 6 months ago and ask now. Ask anybody who's come to Offbeat a year ago and ask them about 6 months ago. You'll see that there's always been a positive growth curve. Right. So even for yourselves, just take, and that's the reason why we can keep people's excitement about it. So just keep reinventing yourself, because at the end of the day, if you stop working, if you stop waking up and feeling the need to keep evolving and reinventing, then you're going to go out of business very soon. You're going to also get redundant very soon. So no president lasts forever, no leader lasts forever, no political party lasts forever, no ideology lasts forever. It's all about how long you can keep reinventing. The day you get complacent, that's the end. So never stop learning. I guess that's the last message I can.
Thank you so much for this interview.
I am glad, yeah, and hopefully more than 5 people will see it. If they do, let me know.
Yeah, I'll send you the links and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.